Commentary on Revelation 20 verse 11 to 15. Revelation 20, 11 to 15 presents a climactic judicial scene, rich with symbolism and covenantal significance. The vision of the great white throne is not merely about the end of time in a distant future, but about the decisive conclusion of an age, specifically the passing of the old covenant world and the full manifestation of the new. Verse 11, the great white throne and the vanishing of heaven and earth. The great white throne signifies absolute authority, purity, and finality in judgment. The one seated upon it reflects divine sovereignty, righteous, unchallengeable, and complete. The statement that earth and heaven fled away is not describing the annihilation of the physical universe, but rather the dissolution of the old covenant order. Throughout prophetic literature, heaven and earth often symbolize a covenantal system. See Isaiah 51:16, Haggai 2:6. Here, it points to the passing away of the Judaic age centered in temple, law, and national identity. This aligns with the transition spoken of earlier. The old order had reached its end, and there was no place found for it any longer. Verse 12, the dead, the books, and judgment. The dead, small and great, standing before the throne, indicates a comprehensive judgment, not limited by status, rank, or influence. These are not all humans of all time, but particularly those accountable within the covenantal framework that was coming to its end. The books represent the record of world law. Under the Old Covenant, righteousness was measured by adherence to the law, and thus judgment, according to works, reflects that standard. However, another book is opened, the Book of Life. This introduces a contrast, not between good and bad works, but between two covenants. The Book of Life represents those who belong to the Lamb, those whose standing is not grounded in law-keeping, but in divine grace and completed redemption. Verse 13, the sea, death, and Hades. Give up the dead. The sea, death, and Hades are symbolic domains representing chaos, mortality, and the unseen realm. Their yielding up of the dead signifies that no one escapes this judgment. Every realm under the old order is emptied. This is not about a future resurrection of all humanity at the end of history, but about the unveiling and resolution of all who were under the dominion of death within that covenantal age. The power structures of death itself are being dismantled. Verse 14, death and Hades, cast into the lake of fire. Here is a profound declaration. Death itself is destroyed. The lake of fire is not a place of eternal torment for individuals, but a symbol of complete removal and irreversible judgment. When death and Hades are thrown into it, it signifies the end of their authority. The last enemy is abolished. This is called the second death, not as a repeated dying of individuals, but as the final eradication of the old death-dealing system. What began with Adam, death reigning through sin, is now fully undone. Verse 15, not found in the book of life. Those not found written in the book of life are cast into the lake of fire. This is not about believers losing salvation, nor about a future eternal punishment for individuals. Rather, it reflects those who remained identified with the old covenant system and rejected the fulfillment found in the Lamb. To not be in the book of life is to remain in Adamic identity, bound to a system that has now been judged and removed. The lake of fire represents the complete and final end of that identity and order. MASH summary insight. This passage portrays not the end of the physical world, but the end of an age, the full and final judgment upon the old covenant system and everything associated with it. The imagery communicates transition from law to grace, from death to life, from shadow to substance. The emphasis is not on fear of future judgment, but on the triumph of completed redemption. Death is abolished. The old order is gone. What remains is life, secured, established, and unshakable.